Let's get ready to rumble! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
It's time!
The LowBlow MMA Boxing Podcast on USCombatSports.com and Fight Fans Radio.
Welcome to another episode of the Low Blow. I'm Justin Goodrum, joined by Jorge Hernandez and Will McClary. How's it going, guys?
What's up, Jay?
What's going on?
Nothing much, man. It's nice to have a lot to talk about after a busy weekend of combat sports. No shortage of news.
No, not at all.
We're on Fight Fans Radio and on InnoCombatSports.com. We also do work for Southwest Fight as well, so catch us on all three of those mediums. We also have our YouTube page, which has plenty of boxing and mixed martial arts interviews. It's pretty much, with our YouTube page, there's usually about a couple of interviews per week up there. Also, check us out through iTunes, through Fight Fans Radio. If you see our old school Low Blow page on iTunes, we don't update that anymore. We have some technical problems. We're through Fight Fans Radio, so please check that out. And also now, through I think YouTube and Ustream, Fight Fans Radio is actually uploading our shows through those mediums too. So check them out as well. And they have other shows concerning mixed martial arts. I know Fight Fans Radio is going to have Dave Meltzer on, and just check out, they have a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu podcast, so please check them out. So today we're going to talk about Floyd Mayweather Jr. We're going to break down the UFC on Fox 3, which had a lot of great fights, but did terrible with the ratings. We're going to discuss the disappointing news of Lamont Peterson pulling out his fight against Amir Khan. We're going to break down the shocking news of King Mo Lawal signing with Bellator Fighting Championships and TNA Wrestling at the same time. We're going to talk about that. And Dominic Cruz tearing his ACL. But first, Jorge has some news from the local scene from New Mexico and Albuquerque.
Yeah, there's just a couple of things. Josh the Pitbull Torres, who's quickly becoming one of the favorites here in Albuquerque. His record's 7-1. He'll be stepping up in competition and fighting Raul Carrillo, who is 9-1 with 6 knockouts out of actually the Colorado area. He's originally down from Mexico, but he does fight out of Longmont, Colorado. They will be fighting in Carrillo's hometown of Longmont. Both of these guys have a 60% plus knockout percentage, so it's going to be a very entertaining fight. They're set the bout's set to take place June 30th, and also we had Brian Beast Baker, who's originally from West Covina, California, but he's fighting out of Albuquerque now. He actually fought in the Bellator Fighting Championship 67 semifinal against a very tough Ben Saunders. If you haven't seen this fight, please find it. The first round was thrilling. It was amazing. Brian Baker was caught in several submission attempts that you were just waiting for him to tap to, and the guy didn't. He came back, won a unanimous decision, and it's hard to root against the guy. A couple of years ago, he actually fought 2 bouts with leukemia while undergoing treatment. So he's very humble. We have an interview with him on the LowBlow 505 page on YouTube, so make sure you check it out. Very humble individual, and actually good to see that, someone that has been through a lot and is a great person especially. That's great to see. Is so open with the public about what his disease was that he has finally overcome. But it's great to see people like that who strive, to overcome it, to actually be successful in whatever they apply themselves to. So much props to Brian the Beast Baker. Also, Heather Jo Clark, who made her boxing debut earlier this month, will fight at XFC 18 in Nashville, Tennessee on June 22nd. That's going to be at a catch weight of 120. And local fans, you don't have to travel to Nashville. It's going to be on HDNet. So that's great to actually see as well.
And that's an MMA show,
That's
right?
an MMA show. She's flipping back and forth doing MMA just a couple months after doing her boxing debut.
Okay.
Also, we have the Mescalero Warrior Challenge 2 in Ruidoso at the Inn of the Mountain Gods this weekend. Ox Wheeler is actually going to, fight in this event. He's actually fighting Arizona. Freddie Lux, who's relatively known around the Arizona scene. Here in New Mexico, you got guys like Nick Urso's fighting, Clint Roberts, and a guy by the name of Landon Venata, who we just interviewed yesterday. Make sure you check out our LowBlow page or our Twitter. We got a link to the interview that I had with him. Very respectful and humble individual, and there's a lot of, word coming out. I mean, I won't say some of the rumors of how good this guy is or, how well he's performed against the UFC guys, but this guy's going to be a breakout star. He only had 2 amateur bouts under his belt, but training at the world-class Jacksons, he's definitely someone to look forward to, especially with some of the things you're hearing out of that gym. Again, that's Landon Venata, Saturday night at Mescalero Warrior Challenge. Hopefully throughout the night we'll have updates for you. Not sure if anyone of us are going to make it down there, but we'll definitely have updates. But that's it for me.
Okay. Before we talk about Mayweather and Cotto, just to mention our Twitter page. Check us out through our Twitter handle at the LowBlow that has all of our updates as well as our observations and opinions around the combat sports world, and to facebook.com/LowBlow Podcast. So, guys, let's talk about Miguel Cotto and Mayweather Jr. I think I was in the majority in stating that this fight would be boring. But to a lot of people's surprise, and my surprise as well, this fight was back and forth. And really, a lot of people are saying this is the best fight he's had since Diego Corrales. This is a back and forth affair that saw Mayweather pull away in the ending rounds. Let's talk about the Miguel Cotto aspect of this fight first. I know everybody wants to talk about Mayweather and Pacquiao, but in terms of Miguel Cotto, is it true of the opinion that this was one of the best performances of Miguel Cotto's career, and could this actually help him move forward and becoming more popular in the boxing community? What do you guys think of that?
Well, first of all, I think Miguel Cotto's, he did a great job, but he's got to realize that he did lose that fight. So I wish he would have stuck around after the fight to give us a little reflection about his performance. But, let's just break this down. So,
Sure.
Always in this comparison, how he did against Pacquiao. After that fight, of course, when he got, beaten like that illegally by Margarito, his confidence was diminished a little bit when he was going in against Manny Pacquiao. But after he, got his revenge against Margarito, you could tell that Cotto was fighting with a new confidence, and I knew that Miguel Cotto wasn't gonna be a pushover, and he actually came to win the fight. I think that in the early stages of the fight, I felt that definitely that Mayweather was getting the best of him, but I felt like Miguel Cotto, he fought a great fight. Great courage, but it seemed like he never really went all out with Mayweather. Most fighters got to know that you're not going to outbox Floyd Mayweather. He's a purist. It's just not happening right now. So I thought that Miguel Cotto would apply a little bit more of the brawling technique, and it seemed like in the later rounds, either he was just getting stung. We saw that of course Floyd Mayweather, great counterpuncher, and he was definitely getting him in. But, after, the ninth round, it seemed like Miguel Cotto just really started to fade. And, I don't think that he had a real problem in terms of surviving as he did against Manny Pacquiao. But it seemed like his ability to really push forward to win the fight dissipated after the ninth round. So, I thought he did a great performance. I think it speaks volumes for him for what he was able to do in terms of pushing Mayweather. But let's remember, Mayweather hadn't been 12, and I'm not going to say hard rounds, but 12 rounds period since he fought Mayweather back in 2009 or 2010. Forgive me if I'm off there with the year, but it's been quite some time. So that Ortiz fight with only going the rounds that he did, 3 rounds, it really didn't prepare him for a 12-round fight against an elite opponent. So I give Cotto his props, but we have to remember that, nobody really mentioned it, but Floyd had a little bit of ring rust going on when he came into that fight. And I'm not making any excuses, but it is what it is.
And, Jay, we talked about this the last time we were on of if Cotto has a chance. And I think I told you that if he turns into the Cotto from 5 years ago, he did. And we only saw that Cotto for 3.5 rounds, I think. And we had to have, for him to at least have a chance, he had to have gone at least 10 hard or even all 12 hard rounds to get it. You can't go up against maybe the greatest technical boxer in the past 40 years and win that fight. And Miguel Cotto, to be honest, watching the fight, when I watched it live, I scored it 9 rounds to 3. Just found it really strange that people were arguing the points, some people even having Cotto winning. I did not see that at all. Watching it a second time, I could have scored it 8-4, I think, but 4 is the most rounds I will give Miguel Cotto, just because of the fact he waited too much, and when he had Floyd in trouble, he'd land throw 7 punches, and then he'd back up and take it back to the center of the ring. You do not want to be in the center of the ring with such a great technical boxer and such a great defender as Floyd Mayweather. And the defense that Mayweather had that night, he was getting caught, but he blocked a lot of punches as well. And, even though he's getting older, the guy has some of the best defense. Out of anyone that I've seen in my lifetime, Will, I think Pernell Whitaker is the only one that you can even mention the same sentence as Floyd Mayweather when it comes to defense.
Yeah, that shoulder roll is just impeccable. But let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that Miguel Cotto helped contribute any type of blueprint to beat Floyd Mayweather?
I think it was actually Victor Ortiz who developed that blueprint, and Miguel Cotto took for a little bit, because we saw Ortiz take over, maybe a good, out of the 12 minutes that they fought, maybe a good 4 minutes he did show where Floyd was vulnerable, when you would bully him. And Miguel Cotto, I think, just unwrap that and unveil that even more. But guess what? The next guy he's going to fight, if he does, is Manny Pacquiao, and Manny Pacquiao does not bully people.
Manny Pacquiao, in terms of, we were talking about these blueprints, one of the things that I've noticed, that, Floyd is susceptible to is a really good jab. De La Hoya was able to apply it early on. I saw that Cotto, Cotto has a really good jab. Manny Pacquiao, he's just a hard puncher, period. His jab would probably serve more of as a straight right, if you will. But, it just seems like, when fighters they're applying this jab, they're able to keep, Mayweather at bay a little bit. But what I think in terms of the blueprint right now for a fighter to even have a chance is to be prepared to throw the jab all night, and also be able to brawl and bully Mayweather on the ropes. That's really the only chance that they have at this point, because, like you said, that defense is just some of the best defense that I've ever seen. However, it's still, with the Floyd Mayweather, you just can't help but to get frustrated, because in that 12th round, when he buckled Cotto, you just want Floyd to go for the finish. You want him to take that risk, but he's just not willing to do it. And that's part of his, he said he doesn't care about legacy, but that's part of his advertisement, is to make sure by any means necessary he keeps that old, because you've seen it before in boxing history. You've seen guys win the entirety of the fight, and they go for the gusto, maybe 10 seconds left, and they get caught with that punch that they didn't see, and it's over. And Floyd is not willing to do that. So, it's just, you always get this, you're like just impressed by his just technical skills and his defensive skills, but you just know that you're just not going to get that knockout from Floyd. But, regardless of that, you got to put him amongst the greats in terms of what he's able to do with those hands. You know what I mean?
And the way, just very quickly, the way he was snapping those hooks and those crosses, Will, like in the middle of the ring, I was just amazed by this guy. I keep thinking to myself, well, there's nothing else he can do to amaze me. But every fight, this guy just blows me away, and he's the best boxer I've ever seen in my lifetime, man. And
he's definitely amongst the best. I was, in your time, and I got to say in there, that's the best. He couldn't have done any better with punching around the guard for Miguel Cotto, because that was just, I was really impressed with his ability to do that, because, Miguel, he has a really good solid defense. He has long elbows that protect his stomach and his ribs. And, Floyd was just able to figure that out. For me, Floyd is just, his ability to adjust never ceases to amaze me. He's definitely in there playing chess.
Yeah, and I developed a fighter that could beat Floyd Mayweather, kind of the creative player, if you will, that you had back in the day with NBA Jam and all these games.
A fisticuff Frankenstein.
I came up with a guy by the name of Jose Luis Miguel de la Hoya, because that's the only way anyone can beat this guy. If they take what Jose Luis Castillo was able to do in the first fight, how de la Hoya and Cotto were able to bully him against the ropes, All three guys had a similar game plan, but none of them could execute it successfully. To be honest, the only fight I think Mayweather may have lost that was very questionable was the first Jose Luis Castillo fight. But then he kicked his butt the second time they fought. But I mean that's besides the point. The guy's one of the greatest of all time, and if you don't have him in your top 10, you're an idiot. I mean, plain and simple.
Yeah. I want to talk to you guys about the appeal of Floyd Mayweather Jr. because you guys say he's the greatest boxer of all time, and even though he does get the pay-per-view buys to back that up, I mean, this one got 1.5. That's a little bit higher than what I even thought. It still seems to me that Manny Pacquiao is more respected and more heralded as kind of the face of the sport than Floyd Mayweather. I mean, now we heard on mainstream sports shows that, you know, they're going to be boycotting any future Mayweather fight unless he fights Manny Pacquiao. So we heard, you know, I think Bob Arum had a statement about, you know, comparing the propaganda of Mayweather Jr. to Hitler. When are we going to stop with this back and forth and just move to a agreement to have this fight happen? Obviously, Mayweather is going to jail, so it's not going to happen anytime soon in terms of negotiations, but you guys have been around the game of boxing for a long time. When do you think negotiations will begin once again?
Well, probably when, you know, at this point it looks like it's going to be almost like the Roy Jones versus Trinidad. You know, the guys way past their prime, and you just, you know, you wish you could have saw it early on in their career. I mean, at this point, you know. Oh, let me clarify something too. I don't think that Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer ever. I think to be specific, I think that he's the greatest technical boxer that in our era. You know,
okay, gotcha.
Ray Robertson.
Understood.
Just got to throw that out there. But anyway, in terms of this fight being made, I don't know. It just seems like, you know, when they're asking him the questions, I mean, you can see that, you know, in the commentary, it's just so. It seems like he just tries to, you know, evade it and just avoid it by any means necessary, and then it's kind of like almost forced to call Pacquiao. I mean, this is just being plagued by boxing politics, and I think that so many people would have thought that this fight would have happened. I mean, Pacquiao's got to get past Bradley, which I think he'll easily do, because, you know, Bradley's just going to pretty much cater to his style and probably get knocked out. But I just, you know, I don't know what it's going to take. I just honestly, I want to see this fight, but I've just lost hope that it's going to happen. It's just, you know, one excuse after the other. You know, his name is Money Mayweather. He's definitely got the money, but, you know, this fight consistently goes back to who's going to get the biggest draw. So my just question to the boxers is, you know, they're you know, one of the richest fighters in the sport, but yet they're making this fight. They're holding up this fight, I should say, it's about money, and that's just a shame. And so we really just want to revert to thinking about, even though it's hard to do, is some other possible opponents that can really make great fights without these guys actually fighting each other.
And, you know, now that you mentioned who your favorite fighter of all time is, Will, or who you think is the best, Henry Armstrong for me, and then Sugar Ray Robinson. But beside the point, when it comes to these two guys fighting, I think it's getting to the point where you can only, you know, blow this bubble big enough to where it pops and people just don't care. I think after this next fight, if he's pretty dominant, Pacquiao, and I think that's why it draws interest, because these guys have been pretty dominant, you know, with any other fighters, with the exception of Juan Manuel Marquez, I'm just saying, you know. But but these guys are just two of the best boxers since probably, you know, maybe Sugar Ray Leonard and maybe Pernell. I guess Pernell's just one of my favorites. Maybe that's why I'm mentioning it so much here. But how much more can this bubble just grow before it just bursts and people just don't care? It looks like, you know, this
until
is
one
it.
of them loses.
Yeah, well, exactly. And this is it. I think the Juan Manuel Marquez fight just made people think, oh my gosh, maybe Pacquiao isn't the best or the next best after Floyd. Maybe it is Marquez. And it's just very interesting how this is all developing. There's a lot of – it's a perfect storyline, if you will. I don't know if Hollywood could write a better script when it comes to this. I mean, they obviously wouldn't delay it this long. It's turning out to be a dang James Cameron movie where, you know, Avatar 2 is going to come out in 10 years. It's like, when are these guys finally going to fight? It's just unbelievable to me. It's just too much money at stake. And for the sport to survive in the mainstream, or to even just to make a comeback, these guys have to fight just to build off of them and then have people open their eyes to all these other younger fighters. And it's very disappointing that it hasn't happened. But if it doesn't happen by the end of 2012, it's never going to happen.
No, well, we'll have to wait and see. Certainly, it'd be the most richest pay-per-view of all time, and I've always stated that that's the possibility to be 3.5, even 4 million pay-per-view buys on pay-per-view. So I think for it to be about money is insane because both men would make an astronomical amount on one night's worth of work. So
it's pride on so many different levels, I think.
It is.
And it's insane.
Yeah. Also on the night of the Mayweather-Cotto fight was UFC on Fox 3. Mayweather's fight was a pay-per-view success. The UFC's third try on network television was not. The fights were good, but the network rating, to be completely honest, was terrible. They averaged, I think, at 1.4, 1.5, with about peaking at 2.24 million viewers, which is horrible on a Saturday night. If you're not really hip to ratings, I mean, Cops does that. 40 hours mystery, that your 9-year-old grandmother watches, doesn't get pull those numbers. So obviously a terrible night in the ratings, but let's talk about the fight specifically. To me, this was the best performance of Nate Diaz's career. He submitted Jim Miller in the second round. It was a pretty gruesome submission. You're going to see Jim Miller biting on his tongue, tapping out there. Just an unbelievable performance by Nate Diaz. And I want to ask you just two questions. One, is he ready for a title shot, or should he fight Anthony Pettis? And also, could he kind of steal Nick Diaz's thunder? I mean, Nick Diaz is suspended. Nick Diaz, always in his career has been kind of a tortured soul, not really wanting that spotlight. At the same time, Nate Diaz, I mean, he's had his, run-ins with Dana White, here or there, but for the most part, he's behaved pretty well. And there's been little into the problems with him. Just that the only problem has been consistency of winning fights. But now that seems to be going away. He's beating top contenders now. So do you think Nate Diaz could be the star of the Brothers Clan? What do you think about that?
I definitely think so. And as you mentioned, for the very reasons that you mentioned, it's, Diaz might be out for a little bit. He's coming off of a loss. Nate Diaz is on fire right now, and I think he should be one of the, be looked at as one of the top 5 hottest guys in combat sports, just because of what he's been able to do in his last 3 fights. Now, is a title shot warranted? I don't know if I have him top 5 on that list. Maybe him and Pettis can actually trade spots for that 5 spot, I think. Mm-hmm. But I mean, how pumped would you be with a fight between him and Pettis? I don't know if he's done enough. It's kind of unfair because I think if Cowboy Cerrone would have won that fight against him, he would have gotten the next title shot.
Agreed.
And it's just, just where you at in the totem pole right now. Nate Diaz is the flavor of the month. I wouldn't be upset if he got a fight with, with Benson Henderson. But, if he gets that fight with Pettis, how much longer will he have to wait for a fight? We don't know if Melendez is coming over, after
he's not
after his next fight. Okay, so if he's not, Gray's not going to get the title shot again. Frankie Edgar deserves that rematch. I think.
He's getting a rematch.
And that's what I'm making. He deserves that. So there's no way after that fight. Maybe it's too much time to wait. I think they make the Pettis and Diaz fight happen, and see who actually comes victorious out of that. It's going to be one of the most highly anticipated fights in lightweight in years, I think, if those two guys were to get together.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Nate Diaz says he's going to wait. I don't believe that. This is just too much time. And there's another factor here that now comes into play. It's that Guillermo Melendez and Nate Diaz are teammates and friends. And that, Guillermo Melendez has been hassling Dana White to get out of that Strikeforce kind of abyss, for lack of a better word, just stuck in this limbo in that organization. But he might want to stay in Strikeforce and just kind of beat tomato cans until, Strikeforce goes away. Because, if Nate Diaz continues his role, I mean, he can just let his friend have all his, have the spotlight, and while he just, continues to move along in the Strikeforce ladder, that way, he avoids all the questions of fighting his friend. He avoids, splitting up the camp, all those problems that John Jones, Rashad Evans had. It's not happening here because Guillermo Melendez is stuck in Strikeforce. So maybe it's kind of a blessing in disguise for those two. as for, in the future, I agree. I think Anthony Pettis and Nate Diaz makes a lot of sense.
What about a Diaz-Maynard fight?
Man, and that's a good fight because a lot of people question whether or not Nate Diaz can really fight a wrestler or not. I think, to me, Gray Maynard has been kind of MIA ever since he lost the belt.
Yes.
I mean, he lost the the third fight with Frankie Edgar. So I think, I think they did fight before. I think a fight between those two would be fairly interesting. To me, I picked Nate Diaz just because the guy's sweeps is unbelievable. When he was on the ground with Jim Miller, that was incredible. He swept Jim Miller immediately when he got the takedown. It was unbelievable. So to me, I picked Nate Diaz in that fight.
Check this out. Fight of the night honors 5 times. Submission of the night 4 times. This guy has made a crazy killing that is Nate Diaz, that is, off of fight of the night bonuses. It's amazing, and he's got to be one of the most entertaining fighters in MMA, I think. Just because of that fact, of his ability to just engage in these wars and come out of it really unscathed. He really hasn't had a career-threatening injury, and for him to either knock these guys out or choke them out is simply amazing for a guy with his type of frame.
Yeah, if he happens to somehow get a title shot and wins, Nate Diaz could be a contender for Fighter of the Year. So we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Johnny Hendricks against Josh Koscheck. Probably on the main card, probably the least exciting fight, but still a pretty decent back-and-forth affair. Hendricks gets the controversial split decision victory. What did you think of this fight? Is Johnny Hendricks an elite welterweight? Excuse me, because to me, I just think, Hendricks, he knocks people out. He's the only guy other than George St. Pierre to beat John Fitch and Josh Koscheck. But at the same time, I don't really see his stock rising in the UFC welterweight division too much. Where again, he's kind of like Nate Diaz. He's kind of stuck in limbo, in this welterweight title picture. Where do you see Johnny Hendricks fitting in?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question, just because of the fact, as you mentioned, he's beaten 2 elite welterweights. John Fitch easily took care of him. We've never seen that before. Josh Koscheck by controversial decision. Just very quickly, did you have him winning, or did you have Koscheck actually pulling off? I missed part of the second round, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't go back to watch the full fight, but I did give the first round to Koscheck, and I gave the last one to Hendricks. I don't know, the second round, I can't really say whether I believe it was a robbery or not.
I had Koscheck winning, but like with most people, experts in the on Twitter and just on the blogs and stuff, I wasn't mad at whoever won the fight. It was basically even, and I think Mauro Ranallo even scored it even. So I mean, I didn't really care for the outcome either way. I didn't really think one guy put his stamp on the fight, even though Koscheck got those takedowns near the end. I just didn't think neither guy had a significant case to winning the fight.
Yeah, and when you say does he have a case or just a beef to say he's one of the top welterweights, I mean I think so. Anytime you beat 2 top 10 guys within the same weight class, you have to be just talked about as one of the best within there. I don't know what next contest they might have. Do you think it might be a fight against Jake Ellenberger or something?
Maybe he gets the winner of Ellenberger, Martin Kamen. I know they're on a fight night coming up here in a couple of months. Maybe he fights them. So I just think, the UFC is just running into a problem with just creating stars. I mean, Johnny Hendricks, let's face it, he doesn't have that exciting of a personality. He's just, from Texas, he's just kind of there. I mean, he really has no following. You don't really care if he wins or loses, and that's the same thing kind of in the main event with Nate Diaz, Jim Miller. I mean, Nate Diaz just made his way back to lightweight. He's been living in his brother's shadow. Jim Miller, nice guy, awesome fighter, but just, not enticing enough to, watch on a Saturday night, and that's what the ratings, demonstrate. Also, another exciting fight was Alan Belcher and Rousimar Parharas. I mean, that was incredible. Parharas got Belcher in his, famous footlock, but Belcher was able to counter and not only attempt a twister, but ultimately win with the ground and pound. This is Alan Belcher's 4th win in the middleweight division. Can Alan Belcher finally get a top 5 middleweight here. I mean, there's plenty. There's Vanderlei Silva, Vitor Belfort, Yushin Okami, Chael Sonnen. The list goes on and on. Could he fight one of those guys next?
I mean, you'd hope so. This guy's very entertaining to watch. The twister, I went nuts when he tried to submit it.
Me too.
I was hoping that he'd execute it successfully, but unfortunately,
that's a tough submission.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and that's why we only see it, once every 3 years, when within guys of that high of caliber. But when it does come to him, he's in a tough spot right now simply because of the fact of who's in that weight class now. I mean, you got Hector Lombard actually coming now, and for him to be identified as possibly fighting one of these top guys, I hope so. What the hell? Feed him to Michael Bisping even.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very entertaining fight too. Before we talk about the Lamont Peterson and Amir Khan situation, I totally forgot about Saul Alvarez and Shane Mosley. I totally forgot about that. It was on the list and I totally spaced it. But Saul Alvarez, very impressive. Probably contributed to why the pay-per-view did the numbers that it did. I didn't see Alvarez really getting that much mainstream play. I'm on mainstream media, but certainly I'm on the boxing community. That was not the case. He got plenty of attention. Will we see Saul Alvarez? This is the last time we'll see him in a co-main event, right? I think from now on we'll see him pretty much headlining every world boxing show on HBO or on pay-per-view. Is that pretty accurate to say?
I think so.
I mean, it was kind of like pretty much like a doubleheader. I was watching the fight. And, just like a casual boxing fan, he actually, informed me that he was looking more forward to the Mosley-Alvarez fight rather than Cotto and Mayweather. So, but, with that fight with Alvarez, it's nobody has ever stopped Sugar Shane Mosley, period. And, I really thought that Alvarez would be just the first to do it. But he was unable to do it, and I was talking about the reasons why. Some of my my colleagues and other people who watch boxing, they said that Alvarez had a little bit of sympathy going on for Sugar Shane Mosley. I mean, I think that Mosley's attitude, I definitely saw. I don't know how much of a distraction it was when he came in, a little bit overweight, and he looked like, he just had the attitude to actually try to win the fight, but his punches, they had no effect on Alvarez whatsoever. But I thought that Alvarez boxed really good, but his ferociousness seemed absent. And I was really hoping that he would bring that forth. But, I got to commend Sugar Shane Mosley for being able to take those shots. I mean, I was like, you know what? This guy's really got to stop boxing, though. I mean, because it's becoming to the point where Sugar Shane Mosley, after a certain amount of rounds, he is the worst boxer that I've ever seen to make adjustments. He just can't do them. I mean, his skill sets early on in his career, he didn't need to do them because most of the time he was superior to his opponent. But now he can't make those adjustments, and he's just taking unnecessary punishment. So I don't want Sugar Shane to tarnish his legacy anymore. But also I was thinking about if it wasn't for, Canelo having sympathy in terms of knocking Shane out, why wasn't this 21-year-old fighter able to put away this 40-year-old legend?
Had mercy on him, man. I think he has mercy. Sound like Uncle Jesse over here. No, but I think he just, he wanted to hold back and, not. I don't necessarily want to say he didn't want to hurt the guy. Maybe Alvarez looked tired because they were both, working in it. And I was happy to see Mosley at least throw the fair amount of punches that he actually did. He made that fight entertaining. I had tons of people over at my house watching it, and it was people, typically aren't around or usually just, either it's not. I'm not gonna lie. They're either chilling out by the grill or having beers and not paying attention to any of the undercards. They paid attention to this kid. And they love it because he brings the excitement of a heavyweight, Will. And people freaking love that out of him. He has a no-quit attitude. He's not a technically skilled boxer. He's a brawler. He's a brawler and goes in there and works an occasional jab or so. And that's why people flock to him. Just because of the fact you never know what's going to happen. He leaves himself susceptible to some power punches. But he takes just to give an extra 2 or 3. And that's what he showed the other night against Mosley. And I don't think by any stretch we can gauge on Saul's future greatness based off of this fight, because he is fighting someone 20 years older than him, and obviously someone at the end of his career. But it's definitely, good to see that, this type of fighter is still around and still exists. He takes it back to the 40s and 50s, I think, just by seeing his style. And pretty soon we're going to see him go ahead and star on his own pay-per-views, and he doesn't need a fight with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. to build his stardom. I don't think at all. I think it's the opposite way.
Yeah, I think he definitely has the makings of a superstar. He's gonna be a boxing superstar. It's just a matter of these matchups. He's 21 years old. He's just gonna further develop as a boxer. I mean, in terms of his pugilistic skills, he's so precocious. It's amazing. I just really thought that he was gonna be able to put Mosley away, though. I mean, I wasn't severely disappointed. I don't think that it really will affect the status of his superstardom. But I do have to admit, I think that a lot of people thought that this would be the fight where he would be able to, he'd be the only fighter to put away Mosley. But that's all right. He's still developing, and hopefully we can just see him in some fireworks like his red hair.
Hey, Justin, kid's 21.
Yeah,
you got to remind yourself of that, man.
It's true.
Freaking amazing. Yeah. It's just unbelievable how much potential this kid has. So
he just can't start drinking and he'll be all right.
Oh, whoa! He might be Irish, man. Oh, wait.
Well, guys, tell me if this sounds familiar. Fighters attend press conference ends. Fighters get surprised with a random drug test. One fighter fails. Potential excitement for a fight is diminished by a failed drug test. Now it happens again, and the culprit is Lamont Peterson. Apparently, that's exactly what happened. This is from an ESPN report from Dan Raphael. This is a quote from him. A urine sample Peterson supplied during a random drug test administered on March 19th when fighters were at a promotional news conference in Los Angeles tested positive for a synthetic testosterone, a banned substance. Basically goes from there. Peterson's request and Khan have agreed to a random blood and urine testing to build up the rematch, and it was overseen by a Las Vegas voluntary anti-doping association, where its president, Margaret Goodman, I'm sure that's a name familiar to both of you guys. She was a member of the Nevada State Athletic Commission as a physician. Now she's the president of this voluntary anti-doping association. This is interesting to me because this drug test took place outside of Nevada. It was done by a voluntary organization in Los Angeles. It's just very interesting to see how this will play out with the commission going forward. Of course, Peterson denies it, saying that he was within the rules and is just, puzzled. That's why he failed his drug test. What is your guys' thoughts on this? And we know we talked about this subject of testosterone replacement therapy and mixed martial arts, but in boxing we haven't really seen it cross over yet. Do you guys think both sports share the same problem, or is it kind of a separate phenomenon in mixed martial arts? What are your guys' opinions on that?
That's a great question, man. I have to first say it's a travesty that we're losing this intensity to low T symptoms. I mean, I don't know how excusable this is gonna be, man. I'm devastated. I'm really mad, but I'm gonna try to answer your question. I mean, I think that with boxing, I think that in the sports, this has just been a long-term problem with athletes. Period. It's technology and science continues to evolve. It's going to increase the chances of fighters getting caught, and it just kind of, at first, when Mayweather was coming out with all this random drug testing, it just really, it really irritated me because, I felt that was the commissioner's job. We discussed this before, but, these fighters are proving them right. I mean, they're catching them left and right, and it's just, these guys are putting their lives on the line for this. Now, I'm not saying that these drugs, of course, are not going to guarantee a fighter a win, but there is going to, of course, increase certain strengths that could give them the edge. So, I mean, I think it's a major problem in both sports. I couldn't really say that it's one more than the other. I think that we'll be seeing a lot more, though, as I mentioned, as science and technology continues to evolve, and it's just going to catch these fighters. I just don't know how excusable it's going to be for these fighters, their camps, their training team, to just come out and say, hey, I didn't know about this substance. My nutritionist, slipped something in there. I wasn't aware of this. And these fights are getting canceled. I mean, it's so frustrating because you have these fights. We're building them up. And, some fighters I noticed, Margarito and, Mosley, they were at the fight. They just figured out there, Mosley could have pulled up. He could have freaked out, but they continued to fight. So, I can't really necessarily blame Amir Khan for pulling out of the fight, but it's just so aggravating because these guys, they don't want to risk it, but ultimately the fans have to suffer. And we ended up losing the intensity of these fights because we don't know if they're going to, put this off, just similar to, this is totally different, but I'm just saying, with the injury that Berto had, we had to put that fight off. But when we have it done from drugs, I don't think that the fans have as much patience to wait. And then it just, if Khan fights somebody else, if Lamont fights somebody else before they actually have the rematch, it's just really frustrating.
Yep. Accidents happen. Negative drug tests don't. I guess that's what you can actually say with that. And that's,
beautiful.
And that's very disappointing because it is the fans who suffer. And these guys are boxers. They're not astrophysicists or pharmacists that know what the heck they're drinking. As far as they know, it's Nestle's Quick up in their milk, man. And that it's very disappointing that they don't actually keep track or on tabs on what they're actually taking. It's very important to know. And if it was an accident by Peterson or whatever it may be, it's hurting his career just because of the fact he's coming off of the biggest fight and victory of his career, and he had the chance to actually prove the doubters wrong, that he may have lost that fight by rematching Amir Khan and beating him, and then maybe, who knows, maybe launching him into not necessarily superstardom, but as one of the stars in boxing. What hurts with this specific card is obviously Peterson Khan's off, which means we're not going to get a chance to see Adrian Broner's father comb his hair, and that's very disappointing because they're going to cancel that fight. It's not going to be rescheduled. Apparently he might fight Vicente Escobedo, not until July, though, so we're going to have to wait two weeks to see that lineup get combed. So,
let me ask you something too, guys. Once a fighter is caught, doing, whether it be illegal hand wraps or, illegal substance, are there previous accomplishments, do they instantaneously become questionable?
I think if you question Margarito, apparently he had dirty hand wraps, even though we don't know that for certain against Miguel Cotto. Let's be honest. We don't know for certain his hands were illegally wrapped in that fight. Everybody thinks they were, but I haven't seen any proof that
he hasn't won a fight since.
Okay, I'm just saying we haven't seen the proof.
Yeah.
I'm not. I tend to agree with you, but technically we've seen no proof. So I'm not going to go as far in just saying that Margarito used tannic gloves throughout his entire career. I'm not going to go that far. I think with the Alistair Overeem situation, I think it's different because there was a considerable jump in how he looked between his weight at light heavyweight and how he looked at heavyweight. Mm-hmm. People said he ate a lot of horse meat. Before he was a skinny guy. He looked like kind of like Kevin Garnett a little bit. And now all of a sudden he's like the Incredible Hulk when he's at heavyweight. Yeah. And then he passes all his drug tests. So in my opinion, I take the benefit of the doubt and I take his word that he's clean because he passes the drug test. But he failed this one. And he knew of these drug tests compared to, Lamont Peterson knew of his, but with Alistair Overeem it was double because the commission was already suspicious of him because of all his previous transgressions beforehand. I think with this Peterson situation, what's different about this is that this is a independent drug testing agency, not the Nevada State Athletic Commission. I just find that interesting. Yeah. I don't know how this test, how much merit it's going to have within how Nevada works with their commission. I just want to get to Amir Khan. There's rumors that he could be fighting July 7th, which is a terrible date because that's the same date as Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen, which is the biggest UFC fight of the year. That's going to be in Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. There's also a fight with Vladimir Klitschko and Tony Thompson, and also apparently there's also in talks for Nonito Donaire to fight that day too. On the 14th. There's July 14th, which is a week after. I'm reading a bad left hook article here saying like Manuel Marquez is rumored to be fighting on that day as well in Cowboy Stadium. So
we'll be fighting Zab Judah possibly.
So where does Amir Khan do here? Does he land on that July 14th card? It's a big show in Cowboy Stadium. Does that possibly happen? I mean, they're saying in the same article that the only name that's been floated is Danny Garcia.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to happen that night just because Juan Manuel Marquez has close ties with obviously Top Rank and Amir Khan being a Golden Boy fighter. I don't think they're going to do much cross promoting.
Yeah, that just doesn't work. It's just a shame because I mean, let's just face it. It was already skeptical in terms of, Lamont Peterson lifting that championship belt from Amir Khan in the way that he did. And like you said, this was his opportunity to prove that he deserved it. And, I mean, let's just face it, he blew it. So now I think it's just going to be questionable in terms of his – I think it just adds more problems in terms of his previous win. You're probably going to be questioned if he was using that substance there. And it's just not a good. I don't see any opponents right now for Amir Khan. All the greats have been fighting lately, and a July 7th date. Which you mentioned, in all the other mixed martial arts venues that are happening. It's just disappointing. I think that Amir Khan needs to do what Victor Ortiz was willing to do. Although it's not his fault. Andrew Berto he caught the injury, but Victor Ortiz knew that this is what the fans want to see. He want to keep himself fresh for the rematch. I think this is what Amir Khan should do.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a couple of more things before we say goodbye. It broke late last night, that King Mo Lawal, who's serving a suspension, he's not ready to be cleared until September. Also hurt because of his knee surgeries. Signed a unprecedented deal, at least in America, signing a deal with Bellator Fighting Championships and TNA Wrestling. He's going to be doing both. The deal is basically he'll go down to TNA Wrestling's developmental territory called OVW. He'll go there in the summer. He'll wrestle till the end of this year, and in 2013 he'll participate in the Bellator light heavyweight tournament. I want to ask both of you: does King Mo alienate hardcore MMA fans by doing this? We all know about pro wrestling and how it's kind of like the wicked stepchild. It's kind of like that cousin who's successful. It's kind of like MMA and boxing. They're the lawyers and doctors of the family, and then you have the other brother who's like the famous kind of like adult porn director. Like it's kind of compared to that.
Ready to shoot, Jack.
True. I'm just saying it's like it's kind of taboo in our culture, and people are just so negative on it. But in actuality, it's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a scripted form of entertainment, but yet so many hardcore MMA fans just think this is the devil and this should be this horrible. So does this anger a lot of MMA fans in your guys' eyes, or even boxing fans? I mean, Mo was on Showtime. I mean, I know Mayweather did one, bout at WrestleMania, but that was a scene for kicks. It's Floyd Mayweather, so that's okay. But with King Mo, he's been in the, he's not really, he's kind of known as an entertainer, but still more as an MMA fighter. So I want to ask you, like, you guys, you think with your, MMA friends or people that follow this stuff all the time, do you think this will anger them with this happening?
I personally don't think so. Go ahead, Will.
I just, to me, it kind of angers me because, in terms of a fighter, if it's a boxer or a mixed martial artist, first of all, wrestling is not entirely fake. I mean, you can definitely sustain real injuries in that sport. And I mean, in terms of where your true passion lies, why would you risk that, for something that's scripted? I mean, I'm sorry, as a fight fan, whatever sport that those these fighters are in, I want them to just devote their full concentration to that sport in terms of being the best they can be. Of course, this comes into economic interest. I know things like money. I mean, look at Tyson. He was in that WrestleMania. Doing
it turned WWE around.
Yeah, it did. I mean, so it's the name, and that's just the way it is. Like I said, the economic interest, it's always gonna feel they're fired to cross over into other sports, and they're gonna get paid. So at the end of the day, I understand it's definitely a business, but as a fan, when they if I had just been more dedicated, and I wouldn't have went off and did that, and I wouldn't have lost a fight. So I mean, we just kind of almost anticipate excuses in terms of guys not being able the best they can be because they want to venture out. I mean, this is something that I see more in terms of fighters doing things like this at the end of their career, or they just don't really believe that they can sustain any more championships, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think if it was someone with a higher caliber than King, than him, but I mean, never mind. He was pretty damn good at what he did, and
yeah,
and it's frustrating. Just talking about it's making me frustrated even more. So yeah, it kind of pisses me off as of right now, man. It's because the guy had so much promise, and he was able to dominate these opponents. I mean. Mm-hmm. To extremes that we haven't really seen out of any other guys. He was exciting. He was, he was a monster. So, I mean, it's what's best interest for him. I mean, he's suspended. Obviously, he probably needs the money right now because he's not really getting paid. So, and he was doing, not to belittle the women's MMA event that he did, but that was kind of strange for him to actually color commentate such a small event.
Well, it got the attention of the MMA community. I mean, Victor did well with the views. I'm sure I don't think it made that too much money. It was free to watch.
Sure. Completely understandable. But it just seems like this guy just needs the cash. And Bellator is a young and up and coming organization. Correct. And I think, to be honest, as of right now, King Mo needs Bellator more than Bellator needs him. I think they're on the way up. Bellator,
I disagree with that completely. Bellator needs King Mo. Personally, there's two aspects. To me, this story touches home. To me, there's no secret. I am a pro wrestling fan. I have a different perspective on this than anybody. I watch all three sports. I think all three sports can, or I guess all two sports, with one being entertainment, all can coexist evenly and can have great crossover appeal. My problem with this is with the wrestling part of this and what Will had to say. Because to me, a dude coming off 2 huge knee surgeries and now having to learn to wrestling business, which to outsiders think, oh, he's just doing matches and it's just all fun and games. It's not all fun and games. The wrestling industry, I mean, if you follow this promotion that he's with, it's very frustrating TV to watch each and every week. And for King Mo, it's going to be all good. They're going to treat him like the king of the castle. Yeah. But we're in October, November, December. Things change in the wrestling industry like that. And King Mo is an outsider in a totally new medium, which is professional wrestling. It's completely different. And if King Mo can be the greatest pro wrestler of all time, but you know what? That doesn't do you jack in that promotion, Wrestling politics is number one, and I can see King Mo easily being frustrated and being screwed. I think with the Bellator aspect, Bellator lost Hector Lombard. Yeah. They're going to lose Eddie Alvarez, and they have no other stars. You could say Michael Chandler, but no one knows who Michael Chandler is. Let's just be real about it. Great fighter, unknown. And I think with King Mo, this was huge for Bellator. They needed this guy desperately. I think for King Mo, honestly, the wrestling thing is kind of like, even though it's an inherent risk, but he kind of needs something to pass the time. And for me, I just think, if it's King Mo should be in the UFC. I think there's plenty of fights for that to happen. I think with John Jones destroying everybody in the light heavyweight division, that division was for King Mo to take. Rampage Jackson is retired. Shogun's older. Dan Henderson's older. I think King Mo, it would be perfect in the UFC to be a huge star. I think at Bellator, there's really only one money fight, and that's with Rampage Jackson if UFC fires him. And not only that, can Bellator afford Rampage Jackson? I mean, I don't believe the notion that Rampage is going to fight for free. I mean, Rampage said he'll fight all. I'll fight anywhere for free. Okay. That's not true. The guy's going to want to fight for money. And if Bellator can't keep Hector Lombard and Eddie Alvarez and have to team up with a wrestling promotion to sign King Mo, what makes you think they can sign Rampage Jackson?
And no, I completely see where you're coming from. But what competition and what intrigue is it going to draw to fans, MMA fans in general, that King Mo is actually there? I mean, that lightweight division isn't too loaded when it comes to Bellator. It's all the lower weights.
Not.
It's all,
Agreed.
170, maybe even not even 170. It's 155 down. That just
absolutely really
draws
right.
that interest that they actually have.
They need to sign free agents
exactly.
for it. How
I
it
agree
goes.
with you there.
This
I agree
is
with you there.
This on Spike. They're on Spike TV in 2013. No one knows who these other underweight classes are.
Yeah.
No one knows about Freaky Pepple Frede. No one knows who that guy is. Brian Baker.
Yep.
No one. Ben Saunders, a little bit of a following. No one knows who these guys are. And even though they're on Spike and they know how to promote MMA, the problem is that the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, is the number one name brand in mixed martial arts.
Exactly.
And when people watch Bellator, they're going to think, oh, UFC's back on Spike again. Everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way it is. Just look at Strikeforce and Elite XC. The ratings did well, and a lot of people said they thought they were watching a UFC show. They didn't realize the promotions were different. So I don't want to go on a big, tangent, but I don't know. It's weird. I think it's not in terms of internationally, it's not shocking. I mean, Josh Barnett's done this. Mark Coleman, Tim Sylvia, Bobby Lashley. We've seen other guys do both. I think with King Mo, what makes this deal unique is that it's with two American promoters in the United States. That's what makes this unique. Hopefully, with King Mo, he doesn't try to do too much and just stays healthy so he can fight in Bellator. I want to see him fight again. That's the ultimate goal here. The wrestling fan in me is kind of like, we'll see how he does in TNA. That's a whole nother can of worms. But in mixed martial arts, I just hope he stays healthy and fights in 2013. Before we say goodbye, there's some news that broke about Dominic Cruz. He tore his ACL, won't be fighting Uriah Faber. He'll still remain on the Ultimate Fighter reality show. I guess you get your guys' thoughts on Uriah Faber's future opponent at this July 7th show, and also the Ultimate Fighter. I've enjoyed this season, even though, it's just kind of like series fatigue. I like reality shows too, but like the Jersey Shore, it's boring now. Like that's after 5 seasons, how many times can you see Snooki get drunk? It's kind of like it gets old after a while. The same thing with the Ultimate Fighter. It's kind of like it gets, you get the build up to the fight. You get the guy, that the mom has cancer. You get the other guy that has no money sleeping in his car, and then they fight at the end of the show. You see that over and over and over again, and it gets old. So, just in terms of Dominic Cruz, that's a huge rematch gone now. It looks like Renan Barão or Michael McDonald could be in line.
I hope it's Michael McDonald, I think,
Me
right
too.
now.
Yeah. What do you think about that fight that goes down?
Well, I really like it. I think McDonald's a very, technically savvy fighter, and I think he beat Uriah Faber, to be honest.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Huh, interesting. People are comparing that fight kind of like when George St. Pierre fought Matt Hughes for the first time, and, George St. Pierre looked good, but Matt Hughes humbled him quickly. But you see Michael McDonald taking Uriah Faber out.
I think so. I think just he's pretty young and, and hungry, and at 5'8", I think if he uses the jab, man, I think he'll pick Uriah apart. And
interesting.
Then he has to use that jab to pull it off, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I tend to agree with you. I think that would be an exciting fight, regardless of if either it's him or Renan Barão. I've always been a big fan of Renan Barão. Yeah. I think even Renan Barão,
he's got one hell of a record. He's almost got 30 wins and only one loss.
He does, and he's tremendously talented. My only beef is he doesn't let it go sometimes. I just think if he just goes all out, I think he could be super dangerous. So hopefully Uriah Faber gets an opponent. Anything else you guys wanted to add before we say goodbye?
One more thing, and I think you guys would be happy about this. Our favorite Northern Californian reporter, or maybe the only one we know, Ryan Maquignana, just broke it earlier today that a few hours ago that Andre Ward's team is negotiating to set up a fight September 8th with Chad Dawson.
Oh, wow.
Chad Dawson did mention that he would come down to 168, I guess, also.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like Andre Ward in that fight, man.
Yeah, Chad, like I said before, Chad Dawson's been fighting these old dudes. So, it's good to see him up against, a young and up-and-comer, who's already established himself as a champion. So, that should be a good fight.
And I don't think he has the respect from a lot of guys. If you remember Joe Calzaghe's farewell speech after he defeated Roy Jones, when they asked him about Chad Dawson, he said, guy might as well be a promoter. I completely disagree with that. I think he's a very talented individual, but I think Andre Ward is much more talented and would beat him at that weight class at 168.
Yeah, I think if he comes out with Justin Bieber, he'll be all right.
Yeah, he'll be all right, man.
That's right. Look at that. I forgot to talk to you guys about that entourage, man. You got Triple H, Justin Bieber, 50 Cent, and Mayweather's group. That's the most biggest motley crew. And Lil Wayne, the biggest, weirdest combination I've ever seen.
How come I didn't see Lil Wayne?
He was in the picture, I think.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere.
Where did that guy come from? Yeah, and what I want to know is who changed Justin Bieber's diaper after that. He looked scared as hell, man. Who in that ring?
He should be, man. He's the only one without a criminal record in that entire ring. Especially with that haircut, man.
Oh, man.
No doubt. So that's going to end our show. You can get in touch with the show through Twitter, through @LowBlow, Facebook, facebook.com/LowBlow Podcast, our YouTube page, LowBlow505. Please subscribe to get our latest interviews and this other LowBlow affiliated stuff. So please check all that out, and also through iTunes, to Fight Fans Radio, that has all the latest podcasts. Check that out on there. Also, Southwest Fight articles concerning the local fight scene, and fantastic photos done by Will Fox and his team. That's unbelievable work. And also in Combat Sports, as always. So for Will McClary and Jorge Hernandez, I'm Justin Goodrin. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
This has been the Low Blow on NMCombatSports.com and Fight Fans Radio.